What's going on, y'all? Marvel Cross 316 back with another comic book flashback, and today, y'all, we are looking at Marvel Team Up issue number 4. This issue was released in June of 1972, and the cover date is September of 1972. And today we are seeing Spider-Man teaming up with the original X-Men, and they're going to be fighting none other than Morbius. If you don't remember, Morbius was the villain of last issue when Spider-Man teamed up with the Human Torch. Well, once again, Morbius is going to be posing a threat to Spider-Man, and we're going to be looking into that. Also, just a reminder that at this time period, the X-Men was not a regular ongoing series. Marvel was not publishing the X-Men at this time. I think they stopped with issue number 69, or it was like, or 66 rather. Um, Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but the X-Men were not a regular ongoing title, so this was kind of like a reintroduction to the X-Men, just to see if fans wanted the X-Men back in their own ongoing series. So that's just a little key fact there that I wanted to throw out there. So let's go ahead now and get started with the story for today. We start out this issue with Peter Parker having a nightmare about his recent fight with Morbius. Morbius has been one of the most dangerous villains Spider-Man has ever fought. One of the main reasons is because Morbius is a vampire, and vampires kill people. So we're dealing with not only a villain here, but a villain that is willing to kill people so that he can survive. And so that's one heck of a villain that Spider-Man's fought in the past. And we see Peter Parker here is having one heck of a nightmare. And so today's title is And Then the X-Men. Like I said, Spider-Man's teaming up with the X-Men in this issue. This issue is brought to you by Jerry Conway, who wrote this issue. We have Jill Kane on the penciling here, Gil Kane. We have Steve Mitchell doing the inking, John Costanza, the letterer, and Roy Thomas on the editing. So let's go ahead and get started. You can definitely tell that this is a Gil Kane artwork based on how he drew people, especially with the faces. That he has a distinct way of drawing faces that makes you know that this is Gil Kane. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started. We see Harry Osborn, Peter Parker's roommate, is waking him up saying, "Hey man, pull it together or we're going to lose our lease here. We're going to be kicked out of this apartment because you're shouting in your dreams." He says, "Do I need to call a doc or something?" And Peter's like, "No man, I think all I really need is just a lot of rest." He said, "But thanks for your advice anyway, Mr. Osborn." So once again, Peter is kind of treating Harry Osborn like I don't know, a second class citizen. It's just crazy the way that Peter just doesn't really treat Harry Osborn, his roommate, that well. And you'll soon see in future issues that Harry Osborn is going to get more and more upset and angry at the way that Peter has been treating him as of late. But anyway, we'll worry about that later. Right now, Peter Parker needs to suit up as Spider-Man. Peter is definitely feeling woozy. He feels sick. Something definitely is going wrong with Spider-Man here. And he needs to find out what the heck is going on. Because obviously something happened in the last fight with Morbius that's caused him to feel this weak. And so one thing that comes to mind is he needs to go back and visit Professor Hans George Jensen. He made an appearance last issue. He's connected to Morbius. And Morbius actually is going to pay the professor a visit here. And he kidnaps the professor because he wants the professor to help Morbius to remain as a vampire. He doesn't want to lose his powers as a vampire. He wants to stay as a vampire, and he's going to use Hans George Jensen to do that for him. He's going to give him the advice by force. So he attacks, strikes the professor down and kidnaps Professor Hans George Jensen. Meanwhile, down below, we see that the professor's cleaning lady notices some commotion going on up above, so she walks up the stairs. Spider-Man just so happens to swing on by. By the time he gets there, the professor is gone because Morbius had kidnapped him. A bunch of the professor's notes is lying on the ground. Spider-Man notices. Then in comes the cleaning lady. She faints. Spider-Man's like, oh, great. Now she's going to call the police and try to say that I was connected with the disappearance of Professor George, the professor, Hans George Jensen. And so, sure enough, the story is printed in the Daily Bugle that Spider-Man kidnapped a noted scientist. And one of the people that's been reading these newspapers is none other than Professor Xavier. And he's going to contact his X-Men and let them know that they need to go search for the missing professor and see if Spider-Man really is the villain that J. Jonah Jameson is making him out to be. So he contacts the Beast, Jean Grey, Iceman, Angel, as well as Cyclops here. But we also see here that the Beast is actually not going to join his teammates here in this mission. And the reason for that is because in Amazing Adventures issue number 11, Hank McCoy underwent a genetic evolution in his features. He became the furry beast that we all know of today. In current modern issues of the X-Men, that's what's been taking place here in context. And so Hank McCoy has not told any of the X-Men or Professor Xavier at this point of his new genetic mutation. And so he's not going to join the X-Men and is not going to tell Professor Xavier what's going on. He says this is something that he has to handle alone. So the remainder of the X-Men are going to meet Professor Xavier in his study. Professor Xavier is going to relay the information to the rest of the X-Men, telling them that I doubt that Spider-Man is truly responsible for the disappearance of the professor. And I think that what's really going on is that he might be connected to Morbius. So I need y'all to go find Professor Hans George Jensen, and after finding him, then we'll know for sure who really is responsible. So the X-Men go out, and they're going to be on their mission. Spider-Man's swinging in town, and they notice that Spider-Man's swinging through town, so the Angel and Iceman are going to give Spider-Man some trouble here. Spider-Man is not going to just let them play with him so easily. So Spider-Man and Angel and Iceman are going to give Spider-Man a run for his money. We see that Jean Grey and Cyclops are also going to join the other X-Men and to fight Spider-Man, so that they can just, if they could just stop Spider-Man right now and relay the information to him, none of this fighting would have been necessary. But Spider-Man is like, what's up with you guys? Are y'all against me or something? Have y'all been coerced by J. Jonah Jameson and his newspapers? But we soon see that Marvel Girl is able to freeze Spider-Man here, so that Spider-Man is left with no option but to listen to the leader of the X-Men, Cyclops. And they finally are going to give the information to Spider-Man when all of a sudden Spider-Man blacks out. Professor Xavier says, we need to get him back to the X-Mansion immediately. I think that we were looking for the wrong person. After all, it wasn't Spider-Man who was responsible for the disappearance of Professor George, the professor. I can't even remember his name at this point. But anyway, we soon see that Spider-Man is back at the X-Mansion, and we learned that Spider-Man's recent bout with Morbius has caused Spider-Man's entire nervous system to break down. There is toxins within Spider-Man's blood due to the antidote that he received in Amazing Spider-Man issue number 102, thanks to Dr. Kirk Connors. That antidote actually worked for a time, but now it's starting to cause Spider-Man's whole body to become weak to the point of death. And if Spider-Man is not cured in 4 hours, he is going to die. So now the X-Men have no choice in the matter but to find the professor. And if they can find the professor, then the professor will be able to help and save Spider-Man's life. Meanwhile, we soon see Morbius is with that professor here, Professor Hansen, and we see that he's getting a little antsy here. He can't feast on his blood, so he's going to go find some innocent bystanders. He finds these two guys in an alleyway, and he soon kills them and sucks their blood. And this causes, because of the scream of this one guy, causes the alert of Angel, who is swinging on by. He just so happens to hear what had happened and that Morbius was responsible. Angel tells the rest of the X-Men, and this is where the X-Men are going to fight Morbius. And look at the menacing way that Gil Kane drew Morbius. That is fantastic. Fantastic features here. Awesome stuff drawn by Gil Kane here. Morbius is going to give one heck of a battle to the X-Men here. The X-Men are just about to all be defeated when Cyclops is able to lead the team to victory here. And we're going to see how he does that here in just a couple of seconds here. But I'll just let y'all look at some of these great action scenes that Gil Kane drew. Morbius then grabs a hold of Marvel Girl, and he says he's willing to slit her throat if Scott is willing to give up. But Cyclops remains calm, and he uses his optic blast to a point where it hits the trash can, and it ricochets and strikes down Morbius. So Morbius is out for the count, and we see that now they need to go locate Professor George Jensen, and this is where they're going to hear from Professor Xavier, and he says, "Quiet, Bobby. There is a way, dangerous perhaps, but effective." He says, "Jean, blank your thought, and we'll be able to find where the location of George Jensen is." And they find the location, they gather George Jensen, and this is where we're going to find out that Spider-Man's life has been saved. How has his life been saved? Well, his life was saved thanks to none other than Jean Grey. Jean Grey was the cure for Spider-Man because due to the equipment here, she was able to extract the original enzyme from Morbius and give it to Spider-Man, saving Spider-Man's life. And how does Spider-Man repay the gratitude that he has for Jean Grey? He gives her a kiss on the lips. I bet Cyclops is not too happy about that. And then he leaves the scene, crashes through the window. Jean says, "Well, sir, I suppose that ties it up, doesn't it?" And Professor Xavier says, "I wonder, Jean, I truly wonder." And that is how we finish this issue of Marvel Team Up, issue number 4. Spider-Man's life has been saved thanks to Jean Grey, but not just Jean Grey, but all of the X-Men. They were the ones to help put the clues together and save Spider-Man's life. There we have it. So, hope you like this issue, y'all. This is one heck of a good issue drawn by Gil Kane. Good storytelling by Jerry Conway. Hope you liked it. Coming up next, we will see Spider-Man team up with another superhero. Who will be that superhero? You will have to find out next time in issue number 5 of Marvel Team Up. I hope to see y'all there. But before then, go ahead now and drop a like on this video. Subscribe if you have not. And I will see y'all in the next one.